Subaru decided to go from gaskets to RTV on the 2022 Plus Subaru WRX. And in today's video, we're gonna talk about why they chose to do that. And I'm gonna give you guys a better understanding of why they may have chose to do that, especially with all the issues that we're seeing in today's market that are becoming less and less anecdotal, meaning that we're seeing less and less singular instances of them, and we're seeing it happen more often than not. So let's talk about it. Before we get too far into the video, I wanna have a disclaimer and just tell you guys something. I don't mean to bash Subaru in any way here. These are real reasons. These are things that we face with other brands and stuff. It's just part of the process of owning, buying, manufacturing, designing cars. It's not something that should be super scary for you either if you're an owner or you're thinking about buying one. It's just something to have an understanding of and an understanding of why it's happening. I've got another video that fully explains where your headspace should be around this issue. Just sitting in around February of 2023. We might have some updates if you're seeing this later. So take a look at the channel. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, that's going to be your best way to keep up to date with anything Subaru content related that's going to be important to you. If you're considering Subarus, if you're considering a VB WRX, or you just like car content, please consider subscribing. Okay, so you might be looking at everything that's happening and being like, Subaru, you are so dumb. Why would you get rid of gaskets and why would you move to RTV, which is a silicone-based product that is put on in a bead instead of a full gasket, and it's beaded around, and as it seals, it creates a gasket essentially with the two pieces that it seals. It's not just used on the oil pans of the engine. You'll actually find that different types of RTV or silicone-based sealant are used on many different components of solid mechanical structures. Basically all your covers, all your pans, all your pieces of two adjoining metal that have to create a seal on your car. More often than not right now, just across the entirety of all automotive manufacturers, we're seeing liquid-based applications, and that's just a reality of what we're seeing. Now, why are we seeing it, and why is there a change? Unfortunately, we're seeing it not for consumers and the aftermarket. We're seeing it for manufacturers. What does that mean? Moving to RTV makes it harder for owners and mechanics to work on these cars. It's a reality. What it does for manufacturers is it greatly, we're not talking insignificantly, it makes a massive change in the manufacturing process and assembly process. It saves a huge amount of time, which in turn saves a lot of money, but it also saves hard dollars. And let me tell you why. From a dollar perspective, which is actually the smaller portion of the two, because the time of manufacturing, which costs them money, slows down the process, makes it hard to make quota, and just causes you to pay more employees. That's the larger portion. But from a manufacturing perspective, it is easier to create a robotic arm that is programmed to lay a bead of something around an object. The arm itself is smaller. The robot that does it is smaller. You are having a material feed from a vat, so you can have that spiderwebbed across many different robotic arms, and it can get into these spaces a lot faster. It's also easier to program a piece of manufacturing equipment to do that, to follow a track line and apply a layer, than to lay something that has to have a perfect axis, because although it seems like sketching something out in just random space is harder, you can have one point of reference, which might be your singular point of reference down the middle. Whereas if you're trying to line something up like a gasket and lay it on something, you need multi-point of reference. Now, you're gonna have to take my word from that as somebody that was in the manufacturing industry. You're just gonna have to take my word for that, but that is a reality of the equipment side. The equipment side of laying something perfectly down too is just larger when you think about the size of a gasket, which is larger, versus a bead of silicone, which is tiny, right? It's tiny. So the space it takes in the process alone defines a large savings in dollars. The other thing here is creating gaskets is an entirely new manufacturing step. You have to go through the entirety of the process of manufacturing the gaskets, moving them to the line, getting them installed into a piece of equipment that can pick them up and place them in the right place. You need someone to program, like I said, the multi-point of reference on the axis of placement, and you have all those extra steps, right? Versus a singular piece of equipment that can apply a bead. Now, where it gets even more cost savings is applying a bead with a automatic piece of equipment that is programmed removes so many layers of human interaction. Not that humans are going to be putting the gaskets on these things, but it removes all these human interaction points that have to go from process to process. So when you think about going from the materials of making the gasket, you have a team that supervises that. When you go from materials to the manufacturing of the gasket, you have a team that supervises that. When you go from the gasket being manufactured to moving to wherever it needs on the line to then be installed in wherever it's finally being installed in the final assembly, you need a team looking after that. And then in the application, you have a team looking after that. By going to RTV, they've removed everything up until the team at the assembly line with the installation, which when you think about the overall production of a vehicle, that we're not talking about 4 or 5 people, we're talking about a massive infrastructure of people at an engineering level or higher for the most part, because these are going to be engineers, senior engineers, engineering managers. So when you talk about the wage bill associated with that, it is huge. On top of that, your time of manufacturing changes vastly. Think about everything that just happened and think about the fact that you save all of that and then you're just producing cars. On top of that, again, you're gonna have to trust me on this, most of the manufacturing equipment publicly available, so I'm not entirely sure if Subaru uses proprietary in-house built manufacturing equipment. Most of the non-proprietary, publicly purchasable manufacturing equipment that applies silicone-based sealants can operate significantly faster than gasket placement devices for a couple reasons. First off, the equipment is actually just newer equipment and it's designed to apply faster because they're trying to speed up the process, so there's some reality there. But the bigger thing is the equipment doesn't have to then go pick up a piece far enough outside of your manufacturing line. When you think about how big a car is, it has to physically move, pick a piece up, verify that it's picked the piece up, move all the way back and place it and repeat the process, where an arm dispersing silicone can sit just high of the process, lean down, apply, go up. Now that might sound like seconds, but when you're producing 30, 40,000 cars, assuming it's on the global platform and this is hitting significantly more of the brands of this car, 30,000, 40,000 cars saving, let's say, a couple minutes over the line a piece, we're talking about a significant amount of money, significant amount of energy costs, significant amount of floor space, all of the above. So I know I got super deep there, but I wanted to give you guys a real understanding of why Subaru would have made that change and why it made sense for them. It's just unfortunate that we've got this problem and it doesn't make sense for the consumer or for the mechanic looking at it. So it's just one of those unfortunate realities where I personally think a mistake was being made. I think RTV and a silicone-based sealant overall from a engineering aspect is better than a gasket. I mean, hands down, for the most part, if applied and done correctly, it is better than a gasket because a gasket will deteriorate significantly faster because it doesn't have as much flex. It is good for the overall what's happening, but the reality is I think in this instance, something went wrong and we're having problems post-manufacturing. And I think time will tell. So I'll have an update to this video, hopefully shortly in the next couple months, maybe as soon as the next couple weeks. But the reality is it's really going to be defined on what happens with everybody and what we see dropping pans and how Subaru responds, how it's corrected, and as we hear more news about what's happening. So if you want to see more Subaru content, definitely be subscribed to the channel and I'll see you guys in the next video.